Good morning, Galilee family and friends. I'm Amy, and I am here with your Friday prayer focus. The other day, I put out a devotional that included a reflection on one of the lessons that we shared with the kids during our Scuba VBS. Joan saw it and asked if I would share it with you guys this week. So, without further ado, here it is. I hope you enjoy it. This past week in VBS, one of the stories we shared with the kids was the story about Elijah that is found in 1 Kings chapter 18 and 19. We shared his story to illustrate to the kids that God is a friend who's real, that God is real and active in our lives. And the first part of the story, we see the challenge of the altars, where Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to a contest to see whose God is real, whose God is more powerful. The prophets of Baal build an altar, call out to him, nothing happens. Elijah builds an altar, douses it with water, calls out to God, and he sends down fire that burns not only the sacrifice, but the entire altars to the ground, showing his power and his might, showing that he is the one true, real God. The second half of Elijah's story, we see him fleeing from the queen at the time, Jezebel. She got really, really mad when she heard what happened with the prophets of Baal, and basically sent out a decree that Elijah was going to get killed. And so Elijah, who had just seen God do incredible things, gets scared and he runs. And then we find him at Mount Horeb. And on that mountain, we see God start to move in order to meet him and remind him of his realness on the mountain. First, he sends these winds, and it says that God wasn't in there. Then an earthquake comes, but God wasn't in that. Then the fire rains down, God wasn't in that. And then a still, quiet whisper. And the word of the Lord says, Elijah, what are you doing here? And that part of the story basically shows the kids that, yeah, God is also very real in the quiet whispers that he often speaks to us. And I'll tell you what, every time I shared that story last week, something struck me as I whispered out, Elijah, what are you doing here? That story has really kind of like stuck with me and just kind of played over in my mind over the last week. I have kind of just been meditating on it and thinking about it because I think it's so funny that, and just like God also, that he would ask Elijah a question that he already knows the answer to. You see, 14 verses before this, we're told that the hand of the Lord was on Elijah. And then immediately after that, we see Elijah fleeing, running away scared from Jezebel, knowing that she wants to kill him. So God was with Elijah. His hand was on Elijah. He knew exactly what was going on and what was happening and all the things that led up to Elijah being on that mountain. And yet he asks, Elisha, what are you doing here? Now, Elijah's response is pretty telling too, because he goes on to say, reveal like his frustrations and what he's seeing around him. He's seeing a lack of faith on behalf of the people. He's not seeing committed believers. Actually, he thinks that he's the only one left that believes in God. God goes on to tell him, no, you're not the only one left. I still have a remnant of faithful believers, and there's 7,000 in this next town you're going to go to that have not bent the knee to Baal. And Elijah goes on to meet these people in the coming verses. But isn't that just like us? You know, whether we're going through something really, really hard, like a hard season, or maybe we've just experienced some spiritual high, some incredible display of God's power, a miracle, something that's just really blown us away. And as we step away from that experience, we start to look around us and we see chaos and confusion and stuff that doesn't make sense, or we see something lacking in the people or the circumstances around us, and we start to get discouraged. How quickly we lose sight of this God who has just displayed his power that we know to be powerful and real. And as we start to look and focus on the circumstances and the conditions and the fallen state of people around us, we get discouraged, overwhelmed, frustrated. Maybe even like Elisha, we start to despair or find ourselves in a depression. And as I have been thinking about that, yesterday I read Psalm 46, and you're going to recognize this verse. Let me find it. It's a pretty well-known one, but Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted on the earth." But that "be still and know that I am God" is such a well-known, often quoted verse in the Bible. Now, the Hebrew word for be still is rapha, and that means to drop or to let something go, to let it sink. And it's not just like be calm, it's like to let go. And I often think when we find ourselves in these Elijah moments where we are discouraged and frustrated by what we see around us or what we see is lacking around us, something that doesn't seem right, our response to that isn't to keep focusing and letting that discouragement or that despair or that frustration overwhelm us, but we are to be still. We are to rapha, to let go of those things, those circumstances, those conditions that we see around us that are driving us and grasping hold of our sight. Let that go, let it drop, and know that the Lord is who He says He is. Know that regardless of what seems off in all that's around us, what seems awry, what seems not quite right, and all that's around us, even in the midst of that, God is still God. He is very real. He is very sovereign. He is very active. And He knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, He knows exactly what's going on and exactly how to get through it and how to deal with it. I think, I know in my life, I'm very prone to looking at my circumstances and looking at the circumstances or the situations around us and around me and being driven by that. But as I read that verse yesterday, I was immediately taken back to this Elijah story that I've kind of been ruminating on for the last week. And I realized that when Elijah was asked the question, "Elisha, what are you doing here?" It was a call for Elijah to remember who God was, this mighty God that just showed His power to him, that just came through for him when he defeated the prophets of Baal. "Elisha, what are you doing here?" wasn't a call to just see that he was discouraged, but it was a call to remember that he still served a very real, very powerful God that was sovereign and could see and was involved in all that was going on around him. To not focus on the circumstances, but to let them go, to let them drop, and know that He is the Lord. And so I just wanted to share that with you today because I've been thinking about it a lot over the last week. And whatever it is that you're facing, whatever weird circumstances that are happening or discouragement that you find yourself seeing or hearing today, be still and know, Rapha, let it go and know that He is the Lord. He's got this, He's got you. He has never left you nor forsaken you, and He is sovereign over all that might be going on today. In Him you can trust. God is a friend that's real. Oh, hi Bear. This is my cat, Bear. We receive bulletins when we come into church each week, and on the back of those bulletins is a list of people in our community or connected to those in our community that are in need of prayer. I just want to encourage you as you receive your bulletin to take a look at those names and maybe each day pick out a handful of names to lift up to the Lord in prayer. I know that our God is not only a friend that's real, He's also a God who listens to our prayers. We don't need fancy words or eloquent speech. Sometimes the most simple prayers are also the most beautiful. We also don't need to know all the details of what's going on. The Lord knows, and we just have the privilege of coming alongside those in our community to lift them up to the Lord. So I just want to encourage you guys to take a look at those prayer requests and join me and others in praying for our church community this coming week. That's all I have. I hope you guys enjoyed the devotional. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your Friday prayer focus again, and I will see you soon. Bye.